Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
Howdy, howdy.
And
Hello.
welcome. Welcome to the third of a six-part series entitled Picking Up the Pieces, Healing Our Community. Tonight's session is how to de-escalate tense interactions. I hear you, the talk. So at this time, we'd like to take a quick poll. I'll turn it over to Tara Alexander. We're just going to do a quick poll so that we'll have an idea of who's with us today. Okay. So these are the results to our poll.
Okay.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelist and our moderator for this evening, Ms. Simone Thomas.
Hello, my name is Simone Thomas. I will also be on this panel along with Chief Vincent Moore, Deputy Chief Brian Covington, Lieutenant DeAndre Hyman, and that will be our panel, and I will be the moderator with the full questions. All right, panelists, are we ready to begin?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so our first question. What is a proper way to interact with law enforcement when pulled over during a traffic stop?
Hi, everybody. Chief Vincent Moore. Hope everybody's doing well this evening. How to conduct yourself during a traffic stop. I know we are all concerned based upon everything that has occurred over the past several months, you know, with George Floyd, you know, Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake as of recently, as well as Ahmaud Arbery. And we all should be concerned. Simone, and when you're pulled over by the police, you know, you are supposed to pull over as quickly as you can when it's safe to do so. And then I've got two sons, and I always tell them their instructions from me every time they walk out of the house when they're around they're young men now is hands are at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. You let your window down and you wait. If it's dark, you turn the interior light on in your vehicle and you wait until the officer approaches the vehicle and gives you instructions as far as what to do. Once that officer gives you instructions as far as what to do, you follow those instructions. Don't be making sudden moves. You know, as of recently, we've seen the videos where people are out pulling their cell phones out, wanting to, you know, videotape, etc. You know, there is no law against you trying to videotape the interaction or record the interaction between you and the officer. However, my recommendation, don't make sudden moves. Don't be in there fidgeting with your phone. Just wait for him or her to get there, tell you what to do, okay, and then you follow those instructions. Because in a lot of cases, when you're being pulled over, you know, I will say that in some cases, that officer is afraid, okay? And they don't know who they're pulling over. They don't know that they're pulling over an NSU student who has never been in trouble a day in their life. They would just happen to be running late for class or whatever the case should be, and they might have been speeding or not paying attention to what they were doing. and as such, until that officer gets there and realizes who they've got pulled over, that officer's level of anxiety is going to be up. And with you making sudden moves in that car, pulling out cell phones, this, that, and other, that is only going to amp things up a little, much, much more. So bottom line is, wait to be told what to do, hands at 10 and 2, when to roll down. And again, if it's dark, don't lighten that car turned on, and just wait until the officer tells you what to do.
Well, I will speak from a student and as a young woman. I'm from Texas, and my father always told me, well, both of my parents, it was brought up that authority, you respect authority, especially police officers. They're just there to keep you safe. That's a mindset that I was taught and what I continue today. So when I get pulled over, it's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, because at the end of the day, it's a professional interaction. Why should it just be one-sided where they're being professional or respectful? And yeah, I might be having a bad day, but at the end of the day, they're just doing their job. So I think that's something that a lot of people skip over. Like they probably want to go home, eat dinner, go to sleep after a long day. So I think a lot of people just need to have some empathy towards other people when they're getting pulled over.
And you're absolutely right, Simone. Sounds like you had some great parents, or you've got great parents to give you that kind of advice. And the thing that I would tell people is this, and my interaction with students on campus, we talk about a lot of things, and I always tell them this primary thing is this: you as the person in that car will never ever win that argument on the street. That is why you don't get in an argument. Like you said, professional, polite, and that interaction should go just that much quicker and just that much smoother. Don't get in an argument out there. If there's a problem with whatever that officer has told you to do, then you go in later and complain to the proper authorities. What we as parents don't want to have happen is something tragic happens to you because you decided to argue, and not cooperate with the officer, and now we're there, and having a lawsuit or whatever the case should be, but you're either injured or worse, and we don't want that to occur.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the chief's absolutely right. If I could just add a couple of things, I would always inform people to be ready for that traffic stop. So if you see the officer pulling you over, have your registration, your license, and have that ready when the officer asks for it. So that's one less thing that you have to do. The chief spoke about fear. Sometimes officers do have a level of fear. The media, oftentimes, they will say traffic stops are routine. Well, as officers, we know that there's no routine traffic stop. Each traffic stop is going to be different, and you never know what's going to happen. So just be ready for that encounter. Be ready for them to tell you to ask for your license and registration. And like the chief said, keep your hands at the 10 and the 2 position on the steering wheel.
All right, I'll go ahead and move to question number 2. What steps are you willing to take to show support / protect your students who go out and protest and stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement?
So that's an excellent question. Coincidentally, we've had a march already here on campus. Back in July 18th, if I'm not mistaken, the athletic department here joined with the other athletic departments within the other universities here in the 757 area: Virginia Wesleyan, ODU, CNU, Hampton University, and William & Mary. And during that march, we were contacted to participate, and we were certainly happy to do so. It's important that everybody know that it's your constitutional right to protest. So you have that right, you have that freedom here in the United States to peacefully protest. So anytime there are students that would like to protest, the only thing that we ask is to give us a heads up, because what we did, we contacted the Norfolk Police Department, and we made sure that they would assist us to ensure that the march was safe for the participants that were involved on the highway and on the roadways. We marched from the university, starting from Wilson Hall, and we went to downtown Norfolk. And like I said, we participated in that and we enjoyed it. So we encourage it. We have no issue whatsoever with peaceful protest. We just, again, ask for a heads up so that way we can prepare for it and to ensure your safety.
There's one question in the chat from Mrs. Houston. Could you all take a stab at that? Can you see the question in the chat?
I see the question. It says, is the fear racially biased?
Let me take a stab at it, and Brian, if you can piggyback off of whatever. Ms. Houston, in some cases, yes. I mean, yes, absolutely. Because see, here's the problem with some people, or with most of us. We are afraid of what we don't know. Okay, we're afraid of what we don't understand. We're afraid, or you make me uncomfortable when I don't, when I don't know you, etc. So, in some cases, the fear is and can be racially biased because, again, we all have backgrounds. We all bring baggage to every, whether it's a police stop or you're sitting in a, in a class someplace, or you coming here to Norfolk State. We all bring a level of baggage with us and issues, okay? Things that make us uncomfortable. And in some cases, some people, and again, like I said, they are, when they're uncomfortable around people that look different than they are, then yes, I would say that fear can be racially biased. And in fact, we just had a class about 3 weeks ago, just before you guys arrived on campus, entitled Implicit Bias, okay? Because, we all have biases. We bring a bias to the table on pretty much everything that we do. And however, we, and this is my opinion, my professional opinion, there is no place for that type of bias in anywhere, whether you're talking policing, whether you're talking in the campus setting, anywhere. Racially bias has no place in a civilized culture, as far as I'm concerned. Brian, anything?
Yes, so the chief is absolutely right. One unique thing about the three of us, Chief Vincent Moore and Lieutenant Hyman and myself, we all have diverse backgrounds. The chief is a retired FBI agent. Myself, I've had over 23 years of law enforcement experience. I've been here for a year, but prior to coming here, I was a city cop, and I retired as a captain. And Lieutenant Hyman has also worked in the city realm as well. So having said that, I can speak from personal experience that fear does play a factor in our actions. Sometimes you go into neighborhoods that are less friendly, that are sometimes opposing to police officers, so your fear level may be heightened based on your past interactions with particular people or from that particular neighborhood or area, or whatever the case may be. As the chief said, we've been trained with implicit bias training. And if I'm not mistaken, most police departments, especially since President Obama's task force, have been trained on implicit bias. So I think that training is very key, education is very key. And when we know better, you do better. So having said that, I think that yes, fear is a factor. But hopefully with your training, your knowledge, that you don't allow that fear to overcome your policies, the procedures that are in place to affect law enforcement duties.
Alrighty, for our third question. What active role have you taken to address the systematic injustices within our own communities?
Is that mine or yours, Warren?
We can both do that one. So, and the chief touched on it when he talked about implicit bias training, and I'll go a step further, and I touched on it just a little with the last question. So, in 2014, President Obama convened a presidential task force on 21st century policing, and out of that came 6 pillars two of the pillars were titled Building Trust and Legitimacy. Another pillar was titled Police and Oversight. Out of those two pillars, education, training, and one of the most important things that came out of that for most police departments, you'll see, for the most part, all police departments are outfitted with a body camera. And that body camera affords us the ability to be totally transparent to see what occurs in the event that an officer engages with a person and it is done wrong. Then we train that person on how to do it correctly. If it's done right, then we learn from how to interact and how to train other officers on the right way to do things and the wrong way, and not training them on the wrong way, but understanding that certain ways policing can be done better. You'll see before the end of tonight's panel discussion, we're going to display 3 different skits. And without stealing the thunder of those skits, I'll let Chief Moore answer the rest of that question.
And great point, Deputy Chief Covington. Back to his 21st century policing that President Obama brought about, one thing that came out of that was what I thought was good was not only the educational piece, but the community-oriented policing project that came out. In that, what that means is essentially we are going to basically, you're going into a community and you're going to get out of your car. You're going to walk a beat, okay? You're going to get to know the folks that you're there to serve, because some of the problems that we have, whether we call it racially motivated or just as the young Ms. Howson asked earlier about just total fear, you know, some of the issues with bad cops or police officers using poor judgment is, you know, poor training, poor selection. They're literally afraid of the people that they're there to protect. There's a indifference toward the people that they're to protect. Okay, they have no sympathy toward them. They have no interest or concern for them, as well as a poor a culture coming down from the leadership. You know, the chief, the boss. Basically, you know, it's an unwritten or unsaid rule in the department that if you beat somebody up, you know, and a whole lot going to be done. Okay, you know, they're going to quote unquote push it under the rug, or it's going to be your word against the cop's word, and when you go to court, they're all going to pile upon you. So that is an example of, you know, leadership in the police department that's going wrong. And I believe that if you get out and interact with the people that you're there to serve, for instance, we believe, you know, here on Norfolk State that we try our best to get out and interact with the students. Okay, we've even got a bike patrol. Okay, and when the weather is good, we will get we got a couple officers that are bike certified, and it allows us to get out and, as I say, get in amongst you guys. Okay, and in order to so that essentially you're going to say that, hey, that's just Vince. Okay, yeah, some of them call me Chief, but that's just Vince Moore, and he's a good guy, and an easy guy to talk with. That's what we're trying to push here, because we are, as Simone, as you indicated earlier, hey, we just want to go home in the evenings. You know, we've got families, we've got lives. However, the 8 or 10 or 12 hours, normally about 12 hours most days, that we spend with you guys, we want to make sure that they're pleasant, that the time that we spend with you guys is pleasant.
Thank you so much, Chief Moore. So for our next question, do you believe the incidents like the ones in Ferguson, New York, are more likely to happen when young and relatively inexperienced officers are involved? To what extent does the fear on the officer's part play in the role of these situations?
I will say that Ferguson, New York, it occurred when you had a culture of indifference was allowed, and I'm basically telling you what occurred, you know, I said I'm retired from the FBI, and I was privy to some of the investigation results, and some of those results basically came back to say that the police department essentially targeted a community of people, Black folks. There was a huge amount of indifference toward that community, and they literally, you know, things like, you know, if you're on one side of town, you'll get a ticket, that's $20. If you're down in Ferguson, you get a ticket, that's $200. Okay, they looked at things like that, and that indifference as far as it was not separate and equal. It was separate and totally unequal as far as the way policing was done in Ferguson. It had nothing to do in this particular case with a young, inexperienced officer per se. It had a whole lot more to do with officers approaching citizens and essentially being rude, hostile, and in some cases, literally picking on them. That was the issue with Ferguson. CC?
Yes, sir. So to touch on New York, what the chief is referring to is stop and frisk. So back during that time, the mayor, there was a huge rise and increase of violent crime in New York, huge rise in uptick in homicides, robberies. So they implored what's called stop and frisk. That was later deemed to be unconstitutional, primarily because it was targeting, or the results of the investigation saw that it was targeting minorities. So they no longer do stop and frisk at this point in time. But Ferguson, some of these incidents are isolated, but let's be honest, there is a systemic issue in this country. And the chief touched on it very well. He said oftentimes it's a cultural thing in some organizations, and I'm speaking broader, not just in law enforcement, but there could be a culture in any type of organization where it's accepted, especially if it comes from the top. Oftentimes it permeates down to the bottom.
Of course, and I'd like to chime in a little bit on that, because back at home, we all know what sundown towns are. It's like if you look a certain way, you're a certain skin tone, you don't stop for gas, you don't stop for food. After the sun goes down, you need to make sure you're clear out of there. There was an experience where driving through this town, you get stopped. That's, like you said, a $200 ticket, whereas you drive 20 minutes down the road and it's a $50 ticket. And I just don't believe a lot of people are aware how those things happen, or the culture of it. A lot of people are naive to the culture of it. And like you said, with the trainings that you have here on campus with our police department, I think that's phenomenal, because you know that not every police department in America has that, you know?
Right.
So speaking of those programs, I really feel like those could benefit some of the things, like with stop and frisk in these cities like Ferguson and New York. If we had more trainings and more officers who actually care to get those trainings, I really feel like those numbers would go down.
I agree.
Moving towards our next question. Some say the killings of unarmed African-American men in Ferguson, Missouri, and New York City are isolated incidents given the traction of the media. Others say that this sign of broader problems in the treatment of minorities by police. What do you think?
So that's, oh, go ahead, Chief.
No, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, one, that's an excellent question. And I know we kind of touched on it with some of the other answers. The way that I would tackle that question and how I would answer that, yes, there are some isolated incidents, but again, we really have to be honest that and acknowledge that there are some issues and there are some problems within our nation. I call it AAA, not to be confused with the company that you call for roadside assistance, but AAA, acknowledgement, accountability, and action. And I think that if more police departments will acknowledge that there's an issue and tackle that issue with holding those responsible and accountable, and then taking action, it will also spread through that organization from the top to the bottom to know that certain type of actions won't be prohibited.
And it's one thing that, you know what, yes, Simone, absolutely. There's a problem in this country, okay? And it's all about race. Absolutely. There's a deep-seated issue that some people refuse to acknowledge that it exists. And as long as we don't acknowledge that it exists, then we're going to always have to deal with this kind of a problem. But, you know, we've got the onset of cell phone cameras, etc. And I had a conversation with my son a few weeks ago, just think about how many people, unfortunately, have been killed over the years when there was no cell phone camera available to record what went on, okay? Now, in some situations that we've seen over the past several months, you know, Simone, you said it perfectly when we first started. Polite and professional. That officer wants to go home just like you do. Don't get me wrong, there are some bad cops out there. However, if we, as the person being stopped, if you basically cooperate with that officer, in a lot of the cases, that encounter will probably end very peacefully. You might walk away with a ticket, or you might walk away with a warning, or whatever the case should be. But we have seen situations where, you know, where I'm from, I was taught by my parents, the police walk up and tell you to do something, you don't question it, you turn around and you go and you leave. They say, hey, y'all break this up, keep walking. Unfortunately, today, we are dealing with a culture of kids, or a culture of individuals who, that Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, they're gonna want to know why, okay? And in some cases, well, Chief Moore knows, because I've dealt with you guys for 18 months almost. I know I've got to stop and explain it to y'all, okay? However, Lieutenant Hyman smiling over there, you know, he came from the city of Norfolk, or you know, hey, I'm on the street, I'm a city cop. You're gonna do it because I told you to do it, because you just broke the law, or I just told you to move on. So the bottom line is this: it takes two to tango, and if both of you guys are going at each other, I can tell you that, like I said earlier, you're not gonna win that argument ever, okay? So don't argue with the police, cooperate, and walk away to file a complaint later. That's my thing. And I will say that all NSU cops have body cameras. They are required to activate those cameras every time they have an engagement with the student, okay? As well as if there are other people with cameras on in and around the scene, the more cameras that are there, guess what? If something occurs, that just gives me, or gives the investigator, that many more angles that they're gonna be able to see and or hear as far as what went on. So hey, everybody pull your cameras out, because one, we've got a professional department and we have nothing to hide.
That was very well said, Chief Moore. And I can say, coming from a perspective of everything going on in the media, I can say I am more inclined, as a young Black woman, I am more inclined when getting pulled over. Well, hopefully I don't ever get pulled over, but you know, life, I'm more inclined to pull out my phone and put it in my cup holder when pulled over by a Caucasian cop than I am an African-American cop. And it's the stigma that's put out today, and that's just something that makes a lot of people feel safe. I know how you explain to your sons. I know my father said it too. If you get pulled over, your hands are at the wheel. You don't move, you don't do anything. The officer tells you to put your hands on your nose, you do it. That's just what goes on. But like you said, us, the younger generation, we need to know why. We need to know how come. We need to know the what, when, why, and how all the time. And I get that's frustrating, and that's where the disconnect comes from, especially with authority. But later on down the line, once we start learning each other more, we start, it's not learning, it's wanting to know each other, wanting to understand where we're coming from. Like, I can sit here and hear your perspective as a police officer and as a from the older generations and get it, but that's because I want to. So we have to figure out where that disconnect is to figure out, okay, why don't we want to respect that authority, or why don't we want to connect with what they're saying? Okay.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
For our next question, what safeguards can police put in place to ensure that they can use appropriate level of force and provide objective evidence in situations where they have to use deadly force? I know we've already touched on the police cams, but adding on to that, what can, especially on campus and out in the city, what is the extra safety insurance that police officers can get out on the streets?
Well, you know what? The bottom line is we're just going to worry about campus. You know, it's all about de-escalation, first and foremost, okay? You know, as a former negotiator with the FBI, it was my job to go into real bad situations and essentially, you know, calm things down. And oh, by the way, calm down is the worst word you can say to somebody that's all jacked up at you. But you're there to talk, okay? And again, if I had a COVID meeting with a task force meeting this morning, and one of the people on the task force was complaining about students being here and there. And another one of the staff members basically says, well, you know, have you ever just tried communicating with them, okay, with the student in lieu of calling the police? Because the only thing that the police is going to do when they get there is the same identical thing that you should have done, okay, without calling us. The students didn't know they wasn't supposed to be here. Just go in and communicate with them. Say, hey guys, can I help you? Or, you know, it's all about communication. It's all about the ability to approach someone and not, you know, they're going to be all up here, but you've got to be the cooler, calmer, more professional individual that's there on the scene. Because if both you guys are at it, it's not going to be it's not going to end well, period.
So very well said, Chief. Without piggybacking on that one, before we go to the next question, can we move into the skits? Just for the sake of time, I want to make sure that we get the skits out, and then that way we will conclude with any other questions that we have at the end.
Great point.
Hey ma'am, how you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm well, thank you. Do you know why I stopped you?
No, sir, I don't.
Ma'am, I'm stopping you because you disregarded the stop sign back there at Corporal Avenue and Maple Avenue.
You ain't got nothing
Yes,
else
sir.
to
Do
do.
me a favor, sir. Please stop for a second while I talk to her.
Yes,
You
But
sir.
have
I'm
your
talking
license
to
with
you,
you,
though.
ma'am?
Here you go, sir.
You're not talking to me,
I'm
sir.
talking to you.
All right. Ma'am, I'm gonna check your license
Officer
status. If everything
Hyman,
comes
I'm
back
talking
fine,
to you.
Yes, sir.
All right. I may
Hi,
cut you a
man.
break, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Just trying to go, man. We got practice in like 30 minutes.
I know we gotta go. It's gonna take like 3 to 5 minutes.
Leave and go about his business.
Ma'am, I'm gonna have my partner check your license status. Like I said, if everything comes back fine, I may cut you a break today, okay?
You got your partner doing
All right.
everything.
Yes, sir.
Were you in a rush? Did you not see the stop sign?
We in a rush. We got practice.
Just headed to
So
practice,
I'm not
sir.
talking to you.
But I'm talking to you.
Why do you feel the need to engage with me, sir?
Because you right here pulling us over. We got stuff to do. Go
I
about your
understand
business.
that much, but I got stuff to do too.
That's fine and dandy.
Okay.
So why don't you go do what
Do
you
you
gotta
want
do?
my
and we do what we
attention,
gotta
sir?
do.
No,
Do you
sir,
need
we're
my
fine.
attention?
No,
Obviously,
sir,
I have
he's
your
fine.
attention.
Let me
already.
give it to you.
Telling you, you come on this side of the car.
And what did you say your name is again?
I don't have a name.
You don't have
No
a name.
name.
But you were so busy, you wanted to talk to me.
Yes, I'm talking to you right now.
All right, do me a favor, step out the car.
I'm not getting out this car.
Either step out the car so I'm gonna make you
remove
step
me
out the
this
car. Step.
So Lieutenant Hyman, can you explain what that traffic stop was about?
Yes, sir, Deputy Chief. So that traffic stop was how not to do a traffic stop, first and foremost. That traffic stop was the violation in that traffic stop, if you couldn't hear, was a young lady who disregarded a highway sign, the stop sign. The officer went up to the car, proceeded to engage with the driver of the vehicle. As you can see, there was a passenger. The passenger was kind of irate towards the officer. The problem in this entire scenario is, yeah, the passenger proceeded to engage with the officer in a negative manner, but the officer lost his cool. In this entire situation, it's up to everyone to remain safe, but the number one person on that scene who's supposed to remain in a professional demeanor is always supposed to be the police officer. The police officer went from engaging with the driver, checking the license status of the driver, came back to the car, re-engaged with the driver of the vehicle, but then focused on what the passenger was saying. That's what we would call baiting, right? In the police world, you let somebody bait you into an argument. You let someone bait you into being unprofessional. Not only did the officer lose focus, he went around to the other side of the vehicle to the point where he opened the door to pull this man out the car. So this is how you do not conduct a traffic stop.
Thank you for that explanation. Just to piggyback on that, for all of our listeners, just know that police officers, they're human beings. And good police officers can sometimes have bad days and they can have huge egos. And with that being said, a situation like that can oftentimes go left, and we certainly don't want it to ever go left. But in that situation, as Lieutenant Hyman explained, the officer was wrong in his actions. So we're going to show you two other skits. Chief Moore, do you want to elaborate?
Just one quick point. I'm glad Lieutenant Hyman said the word baiting, because what some officers have to realize too is some people are doing just that. They're going to intentionally get the attention of the police, and they're going to provoke the officer while they've got their friends standing over on the side with their video phones and cameras out, so that they can start rolling, so that we can end up on, I don't know, YouTube, World Star, wherever, okay? And therefore, we have to make sure that we maintain our professionalism at all times, okay? That's all.
All right, if we can go to the next skit.
Ma'am, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, and you, officer?
I'm well, thank you. Do you know why I'm stopping you?
No, sir.
No, can you go
You
back
ran
to
the stop sign
business?
there,
You a
Corporal
campus
Avenue
cop.
and Maple Avenue?
Yes, sir.
You have the license with you?
I do.
Obviously,
Here
she
you go.
driving.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna have my partner check your license status.
Yes, sir.
If everything comes back good, I may cut you a break, okay?
Yes, sir.
Something to
All right.
do.
Okay, look, this could be 3 to 5 minutes. They're just trying to do their job. It's nothing too deep.
I ain't even worried about it. You gonna get the ticket. I'm gonna say this.
He just said he was cutting me a break, so why even sweat it?
All right, man.
Ma'am,
Yes,
question
sir.
for you. Did you see the stop sign?
No, sir. Just going super fast to practice.
Okay.
Won't happen again.
Okay. Well, as soon as my partner comes back with your license status, again, if you're good.
All clear.
All right. Now my partner says that you're good to go. Please be more careful. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Have a good day.
You as well?
Yep.
All right, Lieutenant Hyman.
So in this traffic stop, this is more ideal. This is how we want all traffic stops to end. No one wants to get pulled over and receive a summons, but sometimes that may happen. But the difference in the first scenario and the second scenario is this. The officer remained focused while he spoke with the driver of the vehicle. although the passengers still wanted to interact in a negative manner, the officer ignored the comments. In situations where an officer is trying to conduct their investigation, if that person's comments aren't causing any safety issues for the officer and or is not prohibiting the officer from doing their job, then the officer needs to remain focused, which he did in that scenario. The officer also received help with de-escalating the situation from the driver. The driver in that situation was trying to calm the individual down in the car and saying, hey, look, I don't want you to make the situation worse. He's saying that he could possibly, cut me a break if you would just remain calm. Now, officer's decision is not solely going to be based on how the interactions goes with the driver and or the passenger. But sometimes that, it could possibly play a difference. But in this scenario, the officer remained focused, remained professional, and the driver helped de-escalate the situation.
Chief, any words?
Nope. As Lieutenant Hyman indicated, that officer, or in this case, he maintained his bearing, and more importantly, he maintained his professionalism, and he did his job. Simple as that.
And for those that don't know, the driver was played by Miss Simone Thomas. So Simone, what would you like to say about those two skits, and what was your take on it?
Okay, so I'll speak on them in order. So the first stop, you could see we had Stuart Anderson next to me, fellow student athlete. He's playing like he's annoyed. He doesn't want to comply, like he's just being outlandish for no reason. And you get that. I can imagine that y'all probably get that a lot. It's just like random people just probably having a bad day. They just got pulled over, we're in a rush, and he's just acting like he doesn't have any sense, if we're being real, towards Officer Hyman, and he engages with him. And that's probably what happens when we see a lot of these videos on social media. It's just like the cop's probably having a bad day, the person in the car is probably not helping at all, and then you get that back and forth that, oh, okay, how is this situation going to play out? But we'll have this recorded. And just like Chief Moore was saying, at the end of the day, when you're going back and forth with a police officer, you're not gonna win. Like, you can go and you can hoot and you can holler, you can get all loud, but at the end of the day, you are not in position to be superior in that situation. And I would hope that would come across a lot more people, and that especially videos like this would send that message out. And for the second video, how it was conducted correctly, Officer Hyman, he came up, he just addressed me. I sat back and I was like, okay, why are we doing this? What's the point? And if more people spoke up in the car, because you'll have situations where other people are in the car and they're just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? That person in the driver's seat, a person who could potentially get the ticket, I would think that they wouldn't want that officer to go back and be like, all right, now I'm giving you a ticket, or now it's a situation, I was gonna let you go. It's your car, you should get control of what was going on. But it was really fun to do as well.
Absolutely right. So before, go ahead, Lou.
Deputy Chief, so I saw a question. Were you about to?
Yeah, I was just about to tackle that question. So before we go to the third skit, a question has popped up in the chat room. Do the police have the authority to let you go if you behave well, or do they have no choice to write you a ticket? So we can all tackle this. I can speak from personal experience. Being a city cop, yes, you do have the authority to let someone go. There's this theory out there that there's a quota that exists in police departments. Let me tell you that is not real. There is no such thing as a quota. In fact, quotas are illegal to mandate that an officer write a certain number of summonses in a day or in a week. Now, as a supervisor, and I have supervised many before, I would get on my officers if they went a whole month without writing one ticket. And my theory behind that was someone violated a street sign, a red light, a stop sign, and in 30 days, somebody violated something. And when we do our data, we check the high volume locations of accidents that have occurred in certain locations. And we noticed that, for example, one particular high volume location, the accidents resulted in running of red lights. So of course, we would do what's called a direct patrol for that officer to watch for any violations. So in situations like that, yes, we do expect for the officer to write tickets and that's just really for the safety of the general public. But to answer that question, no, we don't have to write the ticket. We can certainly let you go. And my practice was, if they were polite and if they were honest, hey, Officer Covington, I'm sorry, I ran the red light, I'm running late for work. If they were honest with me, 100% I always let them go. Lieutenant Hyman?
I was just going to piggyback on what you said. I've been in policing 13 years now, and from day one, I knew that I did not like writing traffic tickets. Will I conduct the traffic stop? Absolutely. And the reason being is because you're obviously doing something on the road. You're either speeding, you have disregarded a stop sign like in a skid, or something, something that caused me to pull you over. For me, it's all about getting you to stop doing what you're doing, right? So I'm simply pulling you over because of an infraction that you committed. I'm going to go to your car. I'm going to speak with you very politely, and I'm going to inform you on what you did. Yes, I have to check your license status to make sure, number one, that you're even supposed to be driving. And like I said in the skit, if your license status comes back good, more than likely I'm going to cut you a break on that traffic stop, because again, I'm just going to tell you what you did wrong, hope that you will stop, and moving forward, you can say, you know what, man, that officer wasn't bad at all. That officer cut me a break. Let me slow down, or the next time I come to that particular intersection, I know that stop sign is there, and I'm not going to disregard it.
And just quickly, I will say that, for my preference for NSU police officers is for our guys to stay on those 136 acres that we have there that we call Norfolk State University. Yes, a lot of cops would like to be out, rolling the streets and writing tickets, etc. But I prefer that our guys stay on the campus. Now, will we write tickets? Absolutely. Okay, because I will just say that Lieutenant Hyman has devised a plan. We got a brand new stop sign at Corporal and what's that street?
It's 4 locations. One is at Corporal and Majestic, and the other one is, what's the other one, Lou?
It's right there by the office.
Corporal and Maple. So.
Maple, yeah. That sign is ran all the time, and we are not just writing tickets to get money because that money goes to the to the city. We're writing tickets there because it is a safety issue. Somebody's going to have a real bad accident there, and we figure that if we are there enough, writing enough tickets, it's going to become muscle memory, and folks that come and go that way, and they're going to start stopping at that stop sign. And the reason we're writing those tickets is totally in order to prevent somebody from having a really bad accident there.
All right, I think we have, Simone, were you going to say something?
Was just a little example of going. I'm so thankful that they put those stop signs back by the police building, because I've seen somebody get pulled over going like 50 or 60 and then get pulled over and was like, what'd I do? Well, I mean, you're in a neighborhood, you're going down. And if that cop doesn't give you a ticket, you should just be like, oh, wow, okay, that's great, thank you. And so instead, some people are still like, oh, why did I get pulled over, this, that, and the third. But those were amazing examples, and it was very well said.
Excellent point, excellent point. So we have one more skit for you all. If you would play that for us, please.
Y'all voted, right? Yeah, we got people to register yesterday.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Fine, and you?
I'm doing well. Y'all mind if I talk to you about a few things real quick? So, campus policy is that our students practice social distancing, which will be 6 feet away. Also, wearing a mask on our campus.
But we're outside.
I understand that, but campus policy is that we wear masks on our campus.
So if we all split up 6 feet, we're good.
No,
we're outside.
because on campus, you need to wear a mask.
But if I'm exercising outside, I don't have to wear a mask. So
You
if we
still
just
should be
split
wearing
up
a mask.
6 feet.
But campus policy is
Wait,
that
so
you
you're
wear a
above
mask.
the governor?
No, but campus policies are made in conjunction with the governor's order.
But we don't have 50 people. It's only, what, 60?
Campus policy is that you wear a mask. So I have an extra mask.
Oh, that's good.
And I would like for you to put it on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
It's new. I just took it out of the pack. You haven't seen me just take it out of the pack?
Y'all voting tonight?
Ma'am, excuse me. Would you put this mask on? It's campus policy. So what happens?
So what happens if I don't put the mask on?
What happens is I'm gonna get your student ID.
Okay.
You're gonna
If
get
I don't have a student ID?
then I'm gonna get your driver's license.
If I don't have a driver's license?
Then you're gonna have to leave the campus.
Oh, but it's an open campus.
Yeah, but you will get trespassed. We're gonna find out who you are. And then from there, we'll give you the trespass notice and then ban you from the campus.
To an open campus. I'm gonna be banned from an open
Yes,
campus.
you'll be banned from open campus.
Okay.
That's fine. She has her mask, so you need to focus on you because you don't have a mask. She probably has everything that she needs, but right now she's encouraging you to do something wrong.
Okay.
So would you put the mask on?
I mean, you put the mask on.
See what you mean now, okay? Put the mask on, let's split up, and let's go on about our business, okay?
I appreciate it.
Just slide down so the main thing. Are you voting? Because that's what we're talking about. I feel like voting is more important than the mask. I'm gonna put it on.
I appreciate it.
So we going to the weekend.
Y'all good?
Yeah, we're gonna make
Y'all
sure all
enjoy
those
y'all
people
day.
registered that come out.
All right, Simone, how about we let you go first? What was your experience like in this particular skit?
So it's set, we're in front of the student union. We're sitting there, we're congregating, we have our masks on. So, you know, you think everything's okay. We're not touching, everything's fine. And then the police officer comes up and you're just like, what? We have our masks on. Nobody's touching, nobody's coughing, nobody's sneezing. We're not being loud, we're not being rowdy. What's the issue? The governor said less than 50 people. We're just sitting there. But no, you're supposed to maintain, especially campus rules. I know we talked on it a little bit. We have to maintain campus rules as well, which means that 6 feet social distancing as well as wearing a mask at all times. And that is being enforced. Like, I've only been on campus a handful of times in these last few weeks. Too serious. Walking down, seeing a random stranger, this professor, put your mask on, yelling from across the court. It was the funniest thing. I'm just like, oh, they are not playing with us. We have training, we get emails. As a student athlete, they are threatening us. Organizations, they are threatening us. And it's just, this was a show. Campus isn't paying, and neither are our campus police. So I really enjoyed this skit. And I hope everybody else does too, because that's probably what's going to happen 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. Lieutenant Hyman or Chief Moore?
Hey, the only thing I will say is just real quick is if we all wear our masks, if we all do our social distancing, then we are hoping that we can remain here until the week of Thanksgiving, which will be the end of the semester. That is the goal, and we want to make sure that we prove to the world that we can do this, okay? And we can make this happen. That's the only thing I've got to say.
I enjoyed this skit as well. Even though I wasn't in it, but I truly enjoyed watching it. I would like to give credit to number one, everybody who participated in all of the skits. But I think the officer in the last skit did a really, really good job. Officer Madison did a good job. He did a great job with approaching the students. And I think Miss Tina Ruffin, who is one of our faculty and staff members here in athletics, did a good job with her back and forth with the officer. Although no one was committing a crime or anything like that, Chief, like you spoke earlier, we live in a day and age where our young adults, they want to know why. Just tell me why. And it's nothing wrong with people asking why. It's not that I'm not going to comply with what you're saying. Just tell me why, right? And in this situation, the main reason is because we want to keep you guys safe, right? We want to keep you guys safe. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and you know, making the decision to come back to school, you know, I'm sure wasn't a very easy one, and we have to do our part in ensuring that we keep you guys safe because you know your guardians and your parents, you know, they are under the impression that Norfolk State University is going to do everything in their power to ensure that my little one, my child, the person that I love the most in this world is going to be safe on this campus. So if it takes a staff member saying, hey, put your mask on, make sure you're social distancing, you know, that's what we're going to do because, you know, we care about you guys. And it's all about the safety of the community.
Well said. This was one of my favorite skits. And as the chief said, we are all elated that the students are back on campus. And we hope that you all can remain here for the duration of the semester. And as my grandmother would always say, you're your brother's keeper. And in that skit, if you notice, Stuart Anderson was one of the role players. There was a point where she didn't want to wear the mask. Stuart saw that and said, hey, it's for your own good. Go ahead and put the mask on. It's for your safety and it's for the safety of everyone around. So that's all we ask, that we all police each other. We all watch out for each other. And I think that's all the faculty and staff is trying to do here. And we ask that the students do the same. If you see someone without their mask on, politely tell them, hey, it's for your safety and for mine, wear your mask.
Yep.
And I think that's all we have.
Thank you very much. We want to thank our NSU Police Department as well as the Athletics Department, who was so instrumental in assisting the police department in their production that they put on for us, their little skits and videos. I'd like to thank our students. We had Ms. Thomas as well as Mr. Anderson and some others involved as well. And we'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to come next week at the same time, same link, for Racism, What is Your Story? Understanding the Harm, a Time for Sharing. The chair for that program is Dr. Eric Clavel, who is the director of the Center for African American Public Policy. And we're looking forward to seeing each and every one of you back here again next week. This is going to be another great presentation, and the one that we had this evening was very enjoyable. Thank you. This has been recorded, and we will have this available on the university's YouTube channel. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all. Have a good one.